My name is Margaret Chen, and I'm 58 years old. For most of my life, I believed that family meant unconditional love and support. I learned the hard way that sometimes the people who are supposed to love us most can hurt us deepest. It was a Tuesday morning in late October when everything fell apart. The kind of morning where the autumn air bites just enough to remind you that winter is coming. I had been caring for my mother, Dorothy, in her home for the past 3 years. She was 79, still sharp as a tack, but her mobility wasn't what it used to be. I had given up my apartment to move in with her. It seemed like the right thing to do. After Dad passed away, she was alone in that big house, and I was her only child. My marriage had ended years ago, and my 2 sons were grown and living their own lives. Taking care of Mom felt like my purpose. That morning, I had gone out to pick up her prescriptions and do some grocery shopping. When I returned, my key wouldn't turn in the lock. I tried again, thinking maybe I was using the wrong key. But no, it was definitely the front door key. My hands started shaking as I tried the back door. Same thing, I knocked. Then I knocked harder. Finally, I heard her voice from inside. Who is it? Mom, it's me, Margaret. My key isn't working. There was a long pause, the kind of silence that makes your stomach drop. Change the locks, Margaret. I stood there, my grocery bags growing heavy in my arms, trying to process what she had just said. What? Why would you change the locks? For another pause. Then she said the words that would echo in my mind for weeks to come. You don't have a home here anymore. I want you to leave. Let's see how brave you are now. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. My own mother, the woman I had bathed, dressed, cooked for, and sat with through countless doctor's appointments. The woman whose medication I organized, whose bills I paid, whose hand I held when she cried about missing Dad. Mom, please open the door. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. You've been living off me for too long. Living off her? I had been caring for her. I had given up everything. I stood on that porch for another 20 minutes, pleading with her through the door. Neighbors were starting to look. Mrs. Patterson from across the street came over, concern written all over her face. Margaret, honey, is everything all right? How do you explain to your neighbor that your mother just locked you out of the house you've been living in for 3 years? I mumbled something about a misunderstanding and walked back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat, shaking. All my belongings were in that house. My clothes, my laptop, my photo albums, my grandmother's jewelry that Dad had left to me. Everything. I drove to my son Daniel's apartment. He was 32, working as a software engineer. When he opened the door and saw my face, he knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. Mom, what happened? I broke down. Right there in his doorway, I cried like I hadn't cried since his father left me. Daniel pulled me inside, sat me down on his couch, and made me tea while I told him everything. She can't just do that, he said, his face flushing with anger. That's illegal. You've been living there. You have rights. She's my mother, Daniel. I can't just what? Stand up for yourself? Mom, you've given her 3 years of your life. You gave up your apartment, your job, everything. He was right. I had been working as an office manager before I moved in with Dorothy. I had taken a leave of absence that eventually became a resignation. I had told myself it was temporary, that once Mom was more stable, I'd find another position. But months turned into years, and I had become so focused on her care that I had neglected my own future. Daniel insisted I stay with him. That night, lying on his guest bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how we had gotten here. My relationship with my mother had always been complicated. She was a strong woman, a teacher for 40 years, respected in the community. But she had always been critical. Nothing I did was ever quite good enough. My marriage to Robert hadn't been her choice. My career wasn't impressive enough. Even the way I raised my sons received constant commentary. Still, she was my mother. And when Dad died, I saw her vulnerability. I saw her pain. I thought that if I took care of her, maybe we could finally have the relationship I had always wanted. Maybe she would finally see me, appreciate me, love me the way I needed to be loved. But over the 3 years I lived with her, things had gotten worse. She became more demanding, more critical. If dinner wasn't exactly how she wanted it, she would barely touch it and complain for hours. If I needed to take a few hours for myself, she would act as though I was abandoning her. When my friend Sarah invited me to her daughter's wedding, Mom had insisted she couldn't possibly be left alone for an entire day, even though I had arranged for a home care nurse. I hadn't gone to the wedding. Sarah had been understanding, but our friendship had grown distant after that. The next morning, Daniel called his brother Thomas. Thomas was 30, a high school teacher, more cautious by nature than his older brother. But even Thomas was outraged when he heard what had happened. Grandma did what? We had a family meeting at Daniel's apartment that evening. Both my sons were there, and they were united in their anger toward their grandmother. You need to talk to a lawyer, Mom. Oma said. You have tenant rights, even if you weren't paying rent. I don't want to fight with her, I said quietly. She's old. She's probably confused. Mom, Daniel said gently, she's not confused. She knew exactly what she was doing. She changed the locks. That takes planning. 2 days after being locked out, I received an email from a lawyer I had never heard of. Michael Richardson, attorney at law. The subject line read, "Urgent matter regarding Dorothy Chen." My hands trembled as I opened it. Miss Chen, I represent your mother, Dorothy Chen. She has informed me of a situation that requires immediate legal attention regarding the property at 847 Maple Street. Please call my office immediately. I called from Daniel's apartment, my son sitting on either side of me for support. Mr. Richardson answered on the second ring. His voice was professional, but carried an urgency that made my heart race. Ms. Chen, thank you for calling. We have a significant problem. What kind of problem? Your mother changed the locks on her home with you inside as a resident. That's an illegal eviction. She could face serious legal consequences. She needs to allow you back into the property immediately and follow proper eviction procedures if she wishes you to leave. I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. I didn't want to be right. I wanted my mother to love me. She didn't realize the legal implications, I said, though I wasn't sure why I was defending her. Miss Chen, with all due respect, your mother called me before she changed the locks. I advised her strongly against this action. She proceeded anyway. The words hit me like ice water. She had known. She had been told it was illegal, and she had done it anyway. I see, I managed to say, I'm advising her to let you back in immediately and to issue you a formal 30-day notice if she wants you to vacate. But, Miss Chen, I need to tell you something else. Your mother has other plans. What do you mean? She's planning to sell the house. She's already contacted a real estate agent. And she's planning to move into a retirement community. The room spun. Sell the house I grew up in? The house Dad had worked 2 jobs to pay off? When? She wants to list it within the month. After I hung up, I sat in silence. Daniel and Thomas were both talking, but I couldn't hear them. All I could think about was Dad. Dad had been a carpenter. He had built the deck on the back of that house with his own hands. He had refinished the hardwood floors in the living room. He had planted the oak tree in the front yard when I was born, and in his will, he had left specific instructions. I drove to the county clerk's office the next morning. I requested a copy of my father's will. I had read it once, 5 years ago, when he passed. But I had been so overwhelmed with grief and with comforting my mother that I hadn't paid attention to all the details. Now, reading it again in the harsh fluorescent light of the clerk's office, I saw what I had missed. My father had left the house to my mother, yes, but there was a provision. If the house was ever sold, half of the proceeds were to go to me. It was his way of making sure I was taken care of, even after he was gone. I made copies of the will and drove to meet with my own lawyer. Her name was Patricia Stone, and she came highly recommended by a friend of Daniel's. Patricia was in her mid-60s, with silver hair and kind eyes that had seen plenty of family disputes. She read through the will carefully, making notes. "Your father was a smart man," she said finally. "This provision is ironclad. If your mother sells the house, you're entitled to half the proceeds." "She doesn't remember this clause," I said. "Or maybe she does and she's hoping." "I don't. Does she have dementia? Any cognitive issues?" "No, she's sharp. She knows exactly what she's doing." Patricia nodded. "Then we need to file a legal claim against the property. It's called a lis pendens. It will prevent her from selling the house without addressing your claim first. That will make her so angry. Margaret, can I speak frankly with you?" I nodded. "You've spent 3 years taking care of a woman who has now illegally evicted you from what was your home too. She's trying to sell a house that your father wanted you to benefit from. At some point, you have to stop worrying about her anger and start protecting yourself." I thought about that for a long time. Protecting myself had never been my strong suit. I had spent my whole life trying to make other people happy. My mother, my ex-husband, even my sons, though they had grown into wonderful men who didn't need me to sacrifice myself for them anymore. "File the claim," I said finally. The lis pendens was filed 3 days later. I knew the moment my mother found out because my phone started ringing. I didn't answer. She left 7 voicemails, each one more furious than the last. Then Mr. Richardson called me. "Miss Chen, we need to mediate this situation. Your mother is very upset. Mr. Richardson, you told her not to change the locks. She did it anyway. Now she's upset about the consequences?" There was a pause. "I understand your frustration, but perhaps we can come to an arrangement. Your mother is willing to let you back into the house to collect your belongings. That's generous of her, considering it's illegal to keep them from me." Another pause. "She's also willing to discuss the sale of the house and your father's will." "I'm listening. She'd like to meet with you. With lawyers present. To work out an agreement." I agreed to the meeting. It was set for the following Monday at Mr. Richardson's office. The days leading up to that meeting were strange. I stayed with Daniel, but I felt untethered. I had no home. Most of my belongings were locked in a house I couldn't access. I was 58 years old, starting over again. But something else was happening too, something unexpected. I was starting to feel lighter, the weight of constantly trying to please my mother, constantly falling short, constantly hoping for her approval. It was lifting. Sarah called me. We hadn't spoken in months, not since I had missed her daughter's wedding. "Margaret, I heard what happened." "I'm so sorry. How did you hear?" "Mrs. Patterson told her sister, who told her daughter, who goes to my church. You know how it is." I laughed. It felt good to laugh. "Yeah, I know how it is. Listen, I'm coming over, we're having lunch, and you're going to tell me everything." That lunch with Sarah was the first time in years that I felt like myself. Not someone's mother, not someone's daughter, not someone's caregiver. Just Margaret. A woman with her own thoughts, her own dreams, her own life. "You gave up too much," Sarah said gently. "We all saw it happening. Why didn't anyone say anything?" "We tried, honey. You weren't ready to hear it." She was right. I had been so committed to my role as the dutiful daughter that I couldn't see what it was costing me. Monday came. I dressed carefully for the meeting, a navy blue suit that I had bought years ago and hadn't worn in forever. I wanted to look like I meant business. Patricia picked me up, and we drove to Mr. Richardson's office together. She prepped me in the car. "Don't get emotional. State your position clearly. You're entitled to half the proceeds of the house sale per your father's will. That's not negotiable. Everything else is..." My mother was already there when we arrived. She looked smaller somehow. Older, she wouldn't meet. My eyes? Mr. Richardson started the meeting. "Thank you all for coming. We're here to discuss the property at 847 Maple Street and to reach an amicable agreement regarding its potential sale and the provisions in Mr. Chen's will." "There's nothing amicable about this," my mother said sharply. "She's stealing from me." "Mrs. Chen," Patricia said calmly, Margaret isn't stealing anything. She's asserting her legal right to half the proceeds of a sale, as outlined in your late husband's will. That house is mine. He left it to me. To live in, yes. But the will clearly states that if it's sold, the proceeds are split 50-50. My mother's lawyer whispered something to her. She pressed her lips together, in that way she always did when she was angry but knew she was wrong. I need that money, she said finally. The retirement community I want to move into requires a substantial entrance fee. Mom, I said quietly. It was the first time I had spoken. I gave you 3 years of my life. I gave up my job, my apartment, my independence. I did it because you're my mother, and I love you. And you thanked me by changing the locks and throwing me out. You were suffocating me, she said, her voice breaking. Always hovering, always trying to control everything. The words stung, but I realized something in that moment. She had felt trapped by my care the same way I had felt trapped by her expectations. We had been locked in an unhealthy dance, neither of us able to break free. I was trying to help you, I said. I didn't ask for your help. Not like that. You moved in and took over my life. You asked me to move in because I was lonely, not because I wanted you to treat me like a child. The room was silent. Even the lawyer seemed uncomfortable. I'm not a child, Mom. Neither are you. But we've been hurting each other. She looked at me then, really looked at me. I said, tears in her eyes. I just wanted my life back, she said quietly. I wanted to make my own decisions again. Then why didn't you just talk to me? Why did it have to be like this? Because you wouldn't have listened. You never listened. That hurt because it was partly true. I had been so focused on what I thought she needed that I hadn't asked what she actually wanted. We sat in that conference room for 3 hours. And slowly, painfully, we worked out an agreement. The house would be sold. The proceeds would be split 50-50, as Dad's will required. I would be allowed back in immediately to collect my belongings. And we would both go to family counseling. That last part was Patricia's suggestion, and to my surprise, Mom agreed. I don't want to hate you, she said to me as we were leaving. You're my daughter. I don't want to hate you either, Mom. The house sold 3 months later for $480,000. After expenses, I received $220,000. It was more money than I had ever had at one time in my life. Mom received the same amount, plus she had her retirement savings. The retirement community she wanted accepted her. I used part of my money to put a down payment on a small condo. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with a view of the park. It was mine, really mine. With the rest, I did something I had been dreaming about for years. I went back to school. Online courses in social work. I wanted to help other caregivers, other daughters and sons who were navigating the complicated waters of caring for aging parents. The family counseling sessions were hard. There were sessions where we both cried, sessions where old resentments surfaced like poisonous gases. But there were also breakthroughs, moments of understanding, moments of real connection. I learned that my mother had felt invisible in her own life after Dad died. That my moving in, while well-intentioned, had made her feel even more powerless. She learned that I had been desperately seeking her approval, trying to earn the love I felt I had never fully received. I've always loved you, she said in one session, tears streaming down her face. I just didn't know how to show it the way you needed. I know, Mom, I know. It's been 2 years since the locks were changed. Mom is settled in her retirement community. She has friends there, activities. She seems happier than I've seen her in years. We talk on the phone twice a week, and I visit once a month. Our relationship is better now, more honest. There's less resentment, more respect. I finished my social work degree last May. I'm working now with a nonprofit that supports family caregivers. I help them understand their rights, navigate difficult family dynamics, and remember to take care of themselves too. Daniel and Thomas are proud of me. They tell me I seem lighter, younger even. I feel it too. I'm dating someone, a kind man named Paul who's a widower and understands the complexities of family and loss. I'm not sure where it's going, but I'm enjoying finding out. Sometimes I drive by the old house on Maple Street. A young family lives there now. I saw them once, playing in the front yard. The oak tree Dad planted when I was born is huge now, providing shade for their children the way it once provided shade for me. I don't miss the house. But I miss Dad. I think he would be proud of how things turned out. He knew, somehow, that Mom and I would need to find our own paths. That's why he wrote that clause into his will. He was giving me permission to stand up for myself, even if it meant standing up to her. The legal battle, as painful as it was, forced both of us to face truths we had been avoiding. It forced us to communicate. It forced us to change. And in that change, we found something we had both been looking for. Freedom. Her freedom to live her life on her terms, and my freedom to build a life that was truly mine. I'm 58 years old. I have a home that's mine, a career that fulfills me, relationships that are honest and healthy, and a future that I'm excited about. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for the people we love is to stop sacrificing ourselves on the altar of their expectations. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is stand up and claim what's rightfully ours. Not just money or property, but dignity, respect, and the right to our own lives. My mother changed the locks that October morning thinking she was pushing me out. What she actually did was open a door I hadn't even known was there. A door to a life where I could finally be myself. And for that, in a strange and complicated way, I'm grateful. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about life, family, and the courage it takes to start over. And please, leave a comment below. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family loyalty and self-respect? I'd love to hear your story. Your experiences matter, and sharing them might help someone else who's facing a similar situation. Thank you for listening.